So we're going to make another big change of direction, and we're going to actually take the opportunity of the AHDB umbrella of different sector levy bodies to invite Philip Burgess from AHDB Potatoes to give us a presentation about the work that he's involved in and the work that they're doing in relation to knowledge transfer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susanna. It's great to be here, to be invited by Cereals in what is a true cross-sector AHDB way of working now and in the future. And I look at it in some ways like this, that I think we've been separate cogs in a wheel for some time, and now we're moving ourselves closer together, and we can benefit and bounce ideas and information off each other. So it was important to point out at the very end of the last talk that the RB 209 revision is a cross-sector piece of work that potatoes are involved with as well. And in fact, Hannah is in the audience, and she's our representative on that committee there. So that's all great. But you've had some fairly technical stuff. I'm afraid I'm going to give you a quick overview of potatoes. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed. You can just sit back just a little bit. There's not quite so much scary information on fungicides or anything like that. I must say, since I was involved in any cereal fungicides, things seem to have changed and got a lot more complicated. So I was going to go, why potatoes? I was going to tell you. I was going to give you a little bit about the scale and importance of the industry. This graphic apparently is a GM potato sorting out a range of different pathogens. Seemed like a good idea, but perhaps it's a little bit distracting now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the resources we have available, knowledge transfer and how we go about it in potatoes. I want to come back to your role in helping us, and a tiny little bit about career development as well. So why potatoes? Well, from my point of view, if we just take the cereal people out of this just for a little bit, okay? Cereals, it's actually just grass, okay? It's actually, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And oilseed rape, don't get me started, but it is a weed. Absolutely, I don't see any argument about that one at all. Potatoes, on the other hand, I started off my career as a pathologist, and I was told quite quickly that potatoes aren't really a crop as much as just a collection of diseases, and there was enough to keep you going there for a whole career. And believe you me, there is enough diseases and pathology in potatoes to do that sort of thing. So that's really why I think we should be doing potatoes. Our main problem with potatoes is that they are vegetatively produced and they grow below ground. So if we could grow them from true seed and have the potatoes produced above ground, we'd probably be something close to cereals and life would be much simpler, really. But potatoes are much more complicated. So where do potatoes sit in the world, then? Just to put them into some kind of context, we're actually the 5th largest commodity crop in the world, just sitting behind wheat, with a large increase in production, perhaps not quite as much as some of the other crops just above it in those figures, but playing its part in increasing the production of food required in the world. And in the UK, we're 12th in production, so it's for us as a small island, it's a very important crop. We kick above our weight in the world, squashed in between Belarus and Iran. China is the biggest producer, which might come as a surprise to some of you. But in China, the World Potato Congress was held out there just recently. They made a decision a few years ago in the Chinese way of doing things that they would increase their production of potatoes. So over the last 10 years, they've produced 20 million more tonnes. And they're using it as a crop which is actually more drought tolerant and more environmentally sensitive than growing rice for their growing population. So there's a lot of future in potatoes, I feel. Just to come a little bit more back to earth and where we are in the UK, so potatoes contribute about 4.1 billion to the economy. This graphic gives the various different sort of messages and things that we use at different meetings, but just to pull out a few things, we're exporting potatoes, seed potatoes, to 50 different countries around the world. We're actually still providing 80% of the carbohydrates at retail level. So potato is still a very important part of our diet, although there is a decline in consumption, it has to be said. And the oft-quoted fact is that a baked potato will provide you with 3 times as much potassium, the equivalent potassium as 3 bananas. So I think as agronomists, what that tells you is you need to apply potassium to potatoes, and we take off plenty of potassium when we put a potato crop in. The number of growers and the area planted, if we go over a much longer timescale from the 1960s, we've gone down from something like 80,000 registered growers in 1960 down to just over 2,000 now. So it's quite a long timescale, but it is continuing. The rationalisation in the industry is continuing. The area has declined by roughly half, but that still means that the area per grower has gone up very significantly. So we're looking at highly invested, highly professional potato businesses requiring highly professional agronomy advice. And that's where you're likely to come in. And there's a bit of a problem really in potatoes. If we look at the cereal yields and things, I think you're probably continuing to see an increase in yield, and Simon was given figures from the recommended lists of continuing small increases in yield. But in potatoes, we increased the yield from 1960 to about 1995, but if you look at the end of this graph, the red line, it's actually fairly static. So there's a job to be done there. There must be a way of breaking these yield barriers and producing more crop. The actual production we have in the UK has actually remained roughly static over that period. So we're actually producing the same sort of volume of potatoes we did 50 years ago. There is a slight decline now, and the very last figure there, 2012, is a climatic issue in that year, and this hasn't been updated since, but you will see an increase over the last 2 years, back up to perhaps not quite the levels of 2011, but getting close to there. So my role is within the knowledge transfer team in AHDB Potatoes, and I think our team aims to deliver evidence, skills, knowledge, and importantly confidence to growers or levy payers to help them engender changes in their business. So we work through that series of issues there to try and make sure that actually the research that's done is the growers have the confidence to uptake. We've got a fairly small team for this, but these are the people who, if you are involved in potatoes, and I really would encourage you to take that leap, because I know it's quite a scary crop for some of you. These are the people who are the technical executives out in the field, who is your first point of contact, really. So we have Jenny in the east, Phil Bradshaw in the north of England, Claire Hodge covers Scotland, and Hannah, who's here, covers the west of England. So as well as the geographic locality that they cover in terms of growers and levy payer interaction, they also have different specialisms as well. So I mentioned Hannah covers nutrition and also PCN and various other issues as well. But these are the people you should be trying to contact, or myself, of course. And importantly, in the middle there, SBCSR. I'll come back to it a little bit later, but that's the Sutton Bridge Crop Storage Research. Now we, as a potato industry, move beyond the agronomy in the field, and I'm sure you do to an extent as well in cereals, but the storage is such an important aspect of potatoes. We have a whole research unit dedicated to this, and that is there for your benefit as well. The potatoes research strategy, or research and innovation strategy, is fairly recent, and within that, obviously, the knowledge exchange is an integral part of that. There's just no point, as has been mentioned before, in doing research for the sake of research. And my team and my efforts are in order to encourage the research to be done and then make sure the results come back out again. And I think we need to think about the people we're speaking to as well. So we have a farm manager here. One of the best jobs I think you can possibly get would be a farm manager if you're prepared to work hard. You've got such a range of different things you need to be doing. You're never doing one job all the time. And I go onto a farm with this farm manager, we'll call him Jack because that's his name, who I worked with previously in terms of potato agronomy. And of course he was doing so many other things. It's really important that we get the messages in bite-sized toolkits so that he can understand them and take them and implement them on his farm. We can't just cover him in different science, because as he leaves the meeting with you, he then goes out to be a drainage expert. He then goes out to start on his grain store project that he's building in the background or whatever. So the resources available to you when you're dealing with these people from a potato point of view is, well, go onto the website. Everything there is freely available, which makes me cry sometimes to think that anybody can come along and just take whatever they want from our website. But all the documents, all the information is available on there. This was a snapshot I took when preparing this, maybe a few weeks ago. It's interesting. It's got the potato industry event, BP 2015, on the 12th and 13th of November in Harrogate. That is the event for potatoes every 2 years. We're expecting around 6,000 people to attend, which is quite considerable, seeing as there's only about 2,000 growers. So everybody in the industry is there. If you're involved in potatoes, you should be there. Please come along. There's a seminar program and various other events taken alongside it as well. Go along online and find out. So what I thought I would do was just very briefly give you some tasters of the sort of information that potatoes have for you, so that when you are going out onto field, you've got the backup that you require to take that further. Fight against blight. Blight is our number one fungal disease. We rely on blight scouts to collect samples of disease to send them in for analysis, so that we get those sorts of genotyping of the blight populations. Essential to us. So again, we need to work as a team. We need you to provide this information so that you can then use that out when you're going onto farm. We also produce that into a map as well, so you can see the blight outbreaks occurring, and there's a warning service as well. We're hoping to update this considerably over this winter, so it should look rather different next year. And again, it's another project where we're integrating with members of other sectors to try and improve our mapping and forecasting services. Varieties, we don't go into the kind of detail in terms of variety assessment that Simon went on to for cereals, but the database is sitting there. We have much more quality disease characteristics and things. First point of call, if you're presented with a new variety, there's the basic information you need to start to develop a program around it and a risk characteristics of different varieties. There's a health and safety section in there. Now you might think, what's that got to do with agronomists? I actually think everybody out on farm needs to be aware of health and safety. The potato industry is a dangerous industry. We have harvesters and forklifts and things along, I'm sure in cereals as well, but we have a training program available there. It's also being updated as we speak, in fact. And really, I would suggest that you should be looking at this as well. You should know the basic rules of health and safety before you go onto farms when you're handling potatoes. It's all there available for you. And if you see people doing things that are silly, then you should perhaps be directing your clients and whatever towards this training program. In complete contrast to that, the PCN toolkit is a wide range of different tools for understanding and controlling PCN. So that's our number one pest. And so there's a series of videos on there with experts, etc., explaining to you the PCN, the latest research, and also a model so that you can be planning rotations for the future as well. Very important sort of winter activity to actually look at the effect of different rotations on your PCN populations. Market information is available on there. Again, it's something perhaps not straight agronomy, but something I think you all need to be aware of is the volatility within our potato industry, which is puts the volatility within cereals to shame, I think, really. We know how to do volatility. And you need to know that sort of stuff. Basically, you need to know how grumpy your clients are likely to be when you're going on to farm. They're not quite so grumpy now. They were very grumpy a few months ago. Aphid trapping and reporting. Aphid's essential if you're involved in anything to do with seed. There's a fantastic tool available there, recording virus transmission risk throughout the season. So if you're involved in seed producers or in home-saving seed, you should be looking at that and signing up to the various reports and things. It's another area of work which we've worked with horticulture and cereals on. Seed rates is another area. There's plenty more, but seed rates, if you're sort of shadowing an older agronomist or something or other, he'll very probably bring out some scrappy piece of paper out of his back pocket, which might have MAF or ADAS or something or other written on it from 1972, and say they base all their seed rates on that. Things have moved on. They really have. We have truly scientific ways of determining seed rate, which go far beyond the size of the seed potato you're planting, but into its physiology and age and potential to produce stems. You should find out about those, and you should go and look at them. There's only about 10 varieties in there, so as soon as what happens then is you go and have a look and you say, oh, well, the variety I'm growing isn't there. But what we're trying to do now is to produce a quick system where agronomists like yourselves will be able to set up a very basic trial, counting stems and tubers and tuber size, and determine your own seed rate. So if you have a group of growers who are beginning to grow a new variety, you might be able to set up a very small, simple trial to get that kind of information. And of course, there's a wide range of technical guides, and if you go out into the hall where the coffee and whatever is, a lot of them are available there. Please take them away, please use them. They are a great source of reference. I mentioned Sutton Bridge earlier on. The crop research, we are unique in potatoes in that we actually have our own in-house R&D facility concentrating on crop storage. It's a world-class facility. It majors a lot of work on sprout suppression, and I think it's absolutely fair to say that if Sutton Bridge wasn't there doing work on sprout suppression, we would have lost the use of CIPC, our major sprout suppressant, over the last few years. And if we had done that, I would hate to think what the state of our industry would be at the moment. So we rely very heavily on those guys there. They look at energy use, store design, ventilation, storage pathology, all an area where you might, as agronomists in the field, feel slightly ill at ease at. But the facility's there, the people are there, they run store managers courses, and they've got a free helpline. Once you've spoken to them a few times, you'll know Adrian, Glyn or whatever, and you'll be able to phone them up and find out what's going on. They're very good at answering, helping you out with different questions, pointing in the right direction. So that's the web side of things, really. Okay, but actually I feel, and I guess a lot of you do as well, that the only real way to get knowledge transfer, information out to growers, is to put your boots on, get out into a field and talk to growers in an environment. I've talked to growers and agronomists in an environment that they feel happy and comfortable in, which is basically a field. And so we're trying to do quite a lot of that at the moment. So last year we set up a strategic potato farm where we took a lot of the different areas of research and tried to put them into a one large field practical demonstration, and have followed that demonstration through the season. So instead of having just a one-off visit or something or other, we've had 4 or 5 farm walks and an open day, and we've had continuing engagement with that. And there's a blog which you can go and look on if you want to find out more information on what's going on there. And I do have a quick, if I can, doesn't seem to play, that's it. There's actually a short video which doesn't seem to work. Never mind. It was a promotional video anyway. What we're actually producing is a series of videos from that event looking at crop greening, nutrition, seed rates, cultivations and things, which will be released at BP in Harrogate and will then become available for you to use with clients, or for us to use at meetings that you might organise and things as a starter for discussions in these sorts of areas. And we hope to have more of these facilities next year. I'm hoping that we might have 3. I'm actually thinking it might be closer to 2 next year. But we're looking at setting up a similar facility. This was in the west. We're hoping to set one up in the east in this kind of area, and also probably one up in Scotland as well. And really, you need to get involved in these sorts of things if you want to be serious about potatoes. You want to interact with us as well, so that we know what we should be doing there, and just help us get this research into growers' hands. As terms of events and things, we have some winter forums, which are technical forums aimed at advanced growers and agronomists and their advisors. Over the winter, these are sort of annual events and really are something that if you're serious about potatoes, you should be looking at. The programme's in discussion at the moment, but expect water use and efficiency to feature highly on the agenda, along with potato blight and the results from the strategic potato farm as well. So again, if you want to find out more, those dates, if you've had a printed out copy, those dates, my dates are correct and your dates are wrong. Okay, but if you go onto our website, it'll tell you when it is. So getting towards the end now. Okay, yeah. Agronomists, I think of you guys as skilled professionals. You're real technical experts. You're becoming, in the past it was a spray sort of sales job in terms, but now it's a whole crop service provider generally, and that's where our storage elements and things come in. And really, I see you as our allies for knowledge transfer in the future. We need to help you, so you need to be speaking to us in order to help us, really. I see you as a conduit for a lot of these messages to get out, and encourage you to get involved, as I say, in potatoes. In terms of younger generation sorts of initiatives from potatoes, we have a next generation programme. This is primarily aimed at levy-paying businesses, which perhaps doesn't really include you guys, but it might include people that you work with, younger people. So we're taking a group of 12 or 15 young professionals from around the whole industry, so growers, processors, pre-pack representatives, etc., and taking them on a tour of the whole industry. So a guy who's a seed potato producer in Scotland gets the opportunity to go to understand processing supply chains and get to visit McCain's factory. Something you just wouldn't have the chance to do, and interact with those kind of people and understand how the whole industry works. Also, including talking to MPs and a visit to Westminster and such like. So a really great opportunity for people, and the next programme of that is, again, as is everything in potato world, is being launched at, you guessed it, at Harrogate on the 12th and 13th of November. And finally, just to finish off, just to knock it in, I just think you have to put this really, okay? Who can compete with potatoes? Chips, crisps and vodka. The other vegetables simply just have to try a little bit harder. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Phil?
You said that the market was really volatile for potatoes compared to cereals. Why is that? What's the difference that makes it more volatile?
What's the difference that makes it more volatile? We haven't got, or we've got a very limited export potential for potatoes because they're very bulky. We do have some imports coming in at times from the continent. We probably have a larger range in yields that are produced each year and a very inelastic demand. So as soon as you get to the stage where there are more potatoes in the country than we can actually consume in our country, the price then just falls through the floor. So last year you could have bought potatoes. Well, I took a study tour to I was with a study tour that went to France, Belgium and Holland. You could have bought potatoes there for €10 a tonne at the time we were over there. And the value, and I think the latest potato weekly values are £140, £150 at the moment, something like that, which is quite, must be around the cost of production, or just a little bit, some profit in there at the moment.
How much do you think the consumer prevents new varieties on the market?
The consumer prevents. I don't think the consumer is necessarily. It's an area that frustrates me intensely. You can divide our industry into a processing industry, very basically, and a pre-pack industry. The processors, they understand exactly what they want from a potato. So you can go to Walker's, you can go to McCain, and they can assess their variety very similarly, I guess, to the way that Simon was talking about for bread making and things. You can just almost put it into a machine, and it will give you the result of the quality and whatever. And if it's good or better than their currents, they'll be interested in it, and they're not so bothered about the name of the variety and things. So there are some really good new varieties coming through on the processing side. On the pre-pack side, we seem to have a very conservative approach to new varieties. There's Maris Piper as the standard variety, which has been around since the 1960s. And is sold, the reason it's there is because it's called Maris Piper and people recognise the variety. And I think that conservatism seems to get through not just in the consumers at the actual people picking up the bags of potatoes, but actually within the buying sort of supermarkets and things as well. So we have a problem in getting new varieties in, particularly with PCN resistance and various other things into the consumer, and there's plenty of advantages that we could have in terms of getting new varieties out there.
Do you think the violate shortage next time will affect how much potatoes are grown? It's certainly not going to. It's going to make things very, very complicated. Second-guessing potato growers. That's a difficult one. How they'll actually react to it. I think it's possibly more likely to alter the sorts of crops that are grown a little bit. So people might move into. There might be less. I don't know. It's a scary one. It really is. I used to work in Angus mostly, and East Lothian, and areas on the east of Scotland. Around there, there's a lot of TRV. We had, generally working with those growers, we'd reduced the amount of Vidate we used. When I was starting to work with them 10 years ago, they would have applied Vidate to everything. They were applying Vidate more sensibly, using a bit more IPM. At the moment, quite what those growers are going to do around there, I really don't know. Their problem is that they haven't got anything else to grow. So knowing Scottish potato growers in that area, they'll probably bury their head and get on and do it.
Clearly,
I saw this week in the Guardian that they've developed a potato which burns salt water. What sort of effect is it going to have on the market if that comes to commercial use?
I saw that's work going on in Holland at the moment, isn't it? Yeah, which is quite interesting. I'm not sure it would necessarily affect all that much over here, but in terms of worldwide production and the use of potatoes in other countries around the world, I can see that could have a tremendous impact on where we can grow things. Yeah, and I think that's quite advanced, some of that work actually in Holland.